Hey everyone, and welcome back. Wanted to do a review because I got in the new Scream Factory double feature release, a 4K release of Slumber Party Massacre and Slumber Party Massacre 2. Now, these have obviously already been released by Scream Factory. Well, the first film has been released twice before on Blu-ray, and then the second one was briefly released on Blu-ray with a double feature with the third one. Now, I know a lot of people have sort of wondered, like, well, what's going on with the third one? If I remember correctly, I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure the third one has a little bit more rights issues sort of associated with it. I think that's why that actually double feature release, which I'll get to in just a moment, was actually pulled. Speaking of which, just kind of show them real quick. So this is actually the original Blu-ray release that Scream Factory put out for Slumber Party Massacre, and if I remember correctly, this was actually one of their early releases. If I can say what year it is. I can remember what year they put this out. I don't want to put my glasses on to try and read text that small. So this was their first release, and this used an existing HD master for it, which is fine for the time. And then more recently, of course, they came out with the Steelbook version, and the Steelbook does have a new transfer on it. In fact, they did a 4K scan of the original camera negative. Now, I believe that scan is actually the basis for the 4K release. In the case of Slumber Party Massacre 2, of course, it was on this double feature Blu-ray release with Slumber Party Massacre 3, and again, this was pulled actually pretty quick, and I believe it has something to do with Slumber Party Massacre 3. Don't know the details. Again, I assume if there's a rights issue either with a producer or distributor or somebody somewhere, but hopefully we still get a re-release of Slumber Party Massacre 3 at some point. Now, this was a fantastic release, the last Blu-ray Steelbook with the new 4K transfer on it, and if I'm not mistaken, they used that same 4K master for the 4K release. Now, obviously, they went back and they did some additional cleanup. They did HDR pass and did sort of the proper, 4K restoration for it. As you can see here from the packaging, obviously it's a double feature, so it has both film posters on the front, and then on the back, obviously it has the details right there, and there actually is a flip that you can do on the inside if you wanted to do that, which I think is kind of cool. You can see right there. And here are the discs inside. So here's the 4K disc, which does have both films on one disc, and I'll cover that in just a moment. And then here's the Blu-ray for Slumber Party Massacre 1 and the Blu-ray for Slumber Party Massacre 2. Now, I know some people have been concerned because both films are on one disc, but here's the thing. First off, both films are not very long. I think they're like, 76, 77 minutes long or something each. So it's not technically taking up that much disk space, as far as because, again, if you had a movie that was released that had it was like 2.5 hours long, it's like not too many people kind of complain. It's like, well, this is kind of the same thing in that regard. And also the extras are on the Blu-ray. So the only thing you have actually on the 4K disc are the two movies, again, each one running like 77 minutes. You have one main audio track, which I believe is mono in both cases, and then you have a commentary track for each film. And then outside of the menu, that's it. There's nothing else on the discs to take up space. So there's no problem there because all the other extras are on the included Blu-rays. And as far as the Blu-rays go, it looks like pretty much all the extras match the previous releases of those. So obviously the commentary tracks are ported over. And in the case of Slumber Party Massacre 2, it also does have the unrated cut, but unfortunately it is standard definition only because I think that's the only version that exists that is ported over from the previous Blu-ray release, but I'm glad it is here. So unfortunately, the included 4K version is the R-rated cut. Just as a heads up, I think in this case, though, there wasn't really anything they could do. Now, as far as how these films look and sound, honestly, they look actually really good, especially Slumber Party Massacre 1, which I thought looked so good because the Blu-ray release, the previous Blu-ray release with the which had the 4K scan as the basis, looks so good, and this is definitely an upgrade from that. Now, is it a night and day upgrade? No, because there's only so much you can do for a low-budget film that was made in like 1981, but I was actually surprised by how good it did look. It had, I definitely saw a lot more detail, especially in close-ups and things like that, so the color reproduction was very solid, and obviously in the main areas was some of the shadow detail. I think was probably the most noticeable thing. And again, the audio is clear. Again, it's pretty much the same audio that was also on the previous Blu-ray release. And I think the new transfer is especially noticeable after you get past the opening credits, which obviously were done optically as they were back then, done in a lab. And in the case of Slumber Party Massacre 2, you are getting a brand new 4K scan of the original camera negative. Now, if I remember correctly, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Slumber Party Massacre 2 is a direct-to-video movie. Now, for the most part, it actually does look good. I mean, it's not one of those that does scream 4K while you're watching it. Like, it does actually kind of look like just a really good Blu-ray, but I'm not taking anything away from it because it's one of those where I think there's only so much you can do for the film, and that just comes down to how it was shot, the film stock that was used. But what you are getting is a very solid presentation. And so I know sometimes people argue like, well, in cases like that, like, why do we need a 4K release? And I'm someone who is very much in belief that every film should get a 4K release no matter what. And that just comes down to not only because I want films in 4K, but also because just for the sake of film preservation, I think it's always good to have a 4K version in existence, which of course 4K in the digital realm is 1:1 to 35mm film. That's a subject for another video, which I will cover because it does have to do with film preservation. But now as far as this goes, same thing, the audio on part 2 sounded actually really good. It was nice and clean. And again, it ports over all the extras that were on the Blu-ray. And for those of you who missed out on the Blu-ray because it wasn't around that long, you know, luckily you can obviously get it in this set. Now, I'm trying to keep this review a little bit shorter compared to my last review that I think ran a little bit long. So I'm going to do a score real quick. I'm trying to cover this. Like, how do I want to do? Let's do an overall score, even though it is a double feature disc, because you have to buy the whole set anyway. So as far as video goes, I'm going to give it a solid 4. With the first film, I think really kind of being much more of a standout, but I'm glad that we have a good, solid presentation of 2. Audio, I'm going to give maybe like a 3.5. It's just a very nice, clean, you know, mono track, which is fine. It's perfect. I'm not taking anything away from the work that's there. You just get a nice clean track, and honestly, a lot of times that's all I need. As far as the extras go, I like the extras that are here. I kind of wish there was a little bit more, but again, at the same time, like, how much can you really do? Kind of debating. Do I want to go to 3.5 or a 4? I'll give it the 4. I mean, maybe probably a little bit closer to 3.75, but I don't want to start breaking stuff down like to that extent. I kind of want to keep stuff sort of, you know, in halves like that. So I don't want to break it down even beyond that. So I'll just round up and I'll say it's 4. Because I mean, there is some decent stuff on here. And then my overall score, I would say it's just a 4, like across the board, like just a solid 4. As far as, you know, what you're getting for your money, you get both films. You do get like really good transfers and the audio is really clear. You get, you know, a nice assortment of extras. I mean, it would have been perfect if we got all 3, but again, I think 3 has you know, issues, so hopefully that's a release that'll come at some point. I definitely recommend this release, especially if you're a fan of these films. Obviously, I think this is probably a no-brainer, but luckily we are getting a very nice release. I'm glad that especially a lot of these Roger Corman films, that Scream Factory is kind of going back and doing 4K releases of them, and we're still missing a ton. I think I don't even think we still need a new release of like Death Race 2000 and stuff. I don't know, there's still a lot more movies they need to get to. But as far as this one goes, I have to say, really, really nice release. Definitely gets my recommendation. If you picked it up or you plan on picking it up, definitely let me know your thoughts. If you have any questions, I'll try and answer them as best I can. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.